In the broadest terms, my research explores the moral dimensions of social relations in pluralist societies. And I'm interested in exploring different cultural contexts in which the recognition of diversity has become an active subject of public debate about visions for what a good society is or what good relations are between different groups and individuals. And as Miriam said, my current research is in the US. I'm joining you from my field site in Nashville, Tennessee, where I've been conducting field work for the past 16 months and will be for the next several months to come. And during this time, I've attempted to immerse myself in the routines and the goings-on of one community in particular, which is a suburban and predominantly white evangelical church of about 1,800 members, which is sort of mid to large size in this context. And I chose this location because Nashville is in a region of the US where white evangelical Protestants make up the historical majority group in terms of religion, but where there's been rapid and significant rise in religious diversity in the past 10 to 15 years. And so this has changed people's understanding of their place in society and of their identity. And Muslims have become among the most visible representation of this new diversity. And so part of my research seeks to understand how efforts to relate to and with Muslims has become part of evangelical Christian attempts to grapple with various macro and micro levels of social change that are occurring around them and happening to them in one sense, but then importantly, moral and social change that they are intentionally bringing upon themselves. And so how these people are experimenting with new relational ideas and approaches in the context of rising diversity. So white evangelical Protestants are not typically, or in the US in particular, are not typically associated with having a positive stance toward diversity and pluralism. They're known to be primarily concerned with converting others to Christianity. And so the word interfaith is not usually something that's attractive to people. It's associated with intellectually and morally threatening notions like relativism and universalism, things that are seen as to put convictions at risk. And so for many of my evangelical interlocutors also, they weren't raised sort of in a social sense to be accustomed to engaging in intentional interactions with non-Christians outside of the framework of proselytizing or trying to persuade others to become Christians. However, at the same time, my interlocutors describe themselves as progressive. They take pains to distance themselves from conventional concerns with proselytizing, and they view themselves as being in transition from old ways to new ways of relating to different people. And what those new ways are exactly is unclear, and it remains one of the most hotly debated questions in their community. And so in somewhat unusual fashion, the church that I'm studying has partnered with a local pro-diversity organization that was founded by a Muslim man and that has the mission to, quote, promote pluralism and contribute to the flourishing of Nashville, sort of as a civic objective, through the recognition and validation of religious and other diversities. The organization is staffed primarily by people from this evangelical church, and they do anti-Islamophobia conferences, they do tours of mosques, and they also do one of the most popular activities that they have is to organize dinners in people's homes that include a facilitated discussion about interfaith understanding, diversity, and those kinds of things. And at the center of this is the effort to create interpersonal relationships between Muslims and Christians that they hope will accompany other levels of political activism to reduce anti-Muslim prejudice. And so what I've found so interesting about this kind of social engagement is that there's an entanglement of evangelistic and pluralistic moral objectives for my interlocutors. And these exist not only on an intellectual and theological level, so questions around truth and relativism, but also on a social level. So my interlocutors report getting along more or less smoothly with Muslim colleagues if they have any at work, or other fleeting interactions at grocery stores or their children's schools. But they talk often about sensing a deep awkwardness when it comes to getting to know Muslims at a deeper level. And they desire friendships with Muslims, viewing friendship sort of within their own community as a means by which to grow closer to God, excuse me. But then actually achieving that level of closeness with religious others becomes complicated in practice by competing moral ambitions for evangelism. And so it's been a central part of my research to try to get a sense of that tension in people's everyday lives and how that relates to other local social histories of cross-cultural interaction, diversity, race relations, and religious movements in the US. So that's the gist of what I'm working on right now.